Welcome to Heather Ewing, the CRE Rundown. I am your host, Heather Ewing, and today I have a perfect guest that you are going to want to connect with. Her name is Denise Graziano, her business, Graziano Associates. Denise, welcome.
Thanks, Heather. Great to be here.
Definitely. Well, it's so nice to connect with you. We've stayed in touch little bits over the years. Was it 4 years ago that we met in Texas?
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah. It's amazing how time flies.
exactly.
As we get going, I've known you for a few years, but please share with our audience a little bit more about you so they can start to get to know you.
Sure. My work has been over the last decades, let's just say decades, helping leaders to navigate organizational transformation and growth. And we are doing a lot of exciting work right now because there's just so much constant change. And the work that we do it spans management, communication, and people strategy. And I love solving problems that are kind of intertwined between those three areas.
Perfect. And to your point, there's definitely a lot of shakeup. We see it in all different sectors. And I think it's really started people to start wondering kind of about the whole entrepreneurial path and things of that nature. What would you say are a few tips that maybe they should look into, or what's your advice for people that find themselves in that space?
For our entrepreneurs, I would say really look to solve a problem, right? It's not something that you've developed that you want somebody to buy, but really you're filling a need. You identify the problem, you know the customer, and you really feel their pain, and that way you can deliver on those kinds of solutions.
Mhm. Solving pain points, right? That's where it's all at.
Yeah.
What would you say are some good resources maybe for identifying ways to get beyond that? Let's say someone didn't know you, right? What's a way for them to kind of navigate the new terrain?
The new terrain, be more specific about which area.
Sure, let's say they just went through a corporate downsizing or their position has been eliminated. Maybe they haven't had the good fortune of meeting you or someone, in your group. What's something they can do to kind of help get beyond?
Well, the work that we do is with usually larger corporations and often going through change. So, you know, when you're trying to get your bearings on that, you really have to understand if you have people working for you, you need to understand them in the context of the work that you have to get done. And if you've left a company and you're going on to something new, I would say, again, you're looking to fill a need where you can add value to that organization.
Mhm, definitely. And what would you say is your sweet spot for the size of organization, or are they in any specific areas as well?
We work with mid-market and larger companies, and I would say it doesn't matter in terms of the type of company we work with, but in terms of verticals, we've worked with the insurance sector, financial services, some hospitality, manufacturing, and then some others in between there.
Great. And I know you had sent me this really neat assessment that I enjoyed taking the other week.
Mhm.
And I think was it the saboteur or some type of assessment? Share with my audience a little bit more about that. I thought it was great.
So the saboteur assessment is from a tool we started using a couple of years ago with clients navigating change and turmoil, and it's from Positive Intelligence. And what it does is really identify, we all have things that hold us back. The way we self-sabotage, whether it's being maybe too much of a pleaser, too much of a controller, too much of a hyper vigilant around things that could go wrong or hyper rational. There are a number of ways that we might be holding ourselves back. And this assessment, I think it takes maybe less than 5 minutes, can identify those things. And it's the basis of what positive intelligence then applies as a solution. It's a toolkit really to help to navigate and change how you handle stress, to create more productivity in the workplace, to handle pressure. Like imagine your work is high pressure sales very often. You have to get the sale done. Imagine being able to do it with more ease and grace because you aren't sabotaging your own deals with things that are that mind chatter in your head. I would also just say that we all have that autopilot negative thinking that comes to mind, and this kind of quiets it. The tools over the course of a matter of weeks can help quiet it and get you more focused on more self-command of how you're thinking.
And to your point, Denise, mindset is everything, as we both know.
Mhm.
What are a few of the tools in the tool belt per se that you like for mindset?
I'm an athlete at heart. I was a, two-sport college athlete, and I don't think that kind of discipline ever leaves you. So really being focused and disciplined to get to your set of goals. That's a mindset, I think, that is something that we can all aspire to because we can get off course. The other thing is really to be very, I like to be regimented in certain things so that you have this cadence and you can really, as you're a marathoner, you have to do
Definitely.
certain training processes to get there. And, personally, mindset, I like to go look to the positive. How can you find an opportunity? If there's an obstacle, try to find a way around it.
Exactly, because to your point, you're going down the path. So you might as well find a way to make the path enjoyable,
Mhm.
right? And so that you're solving your own problem, because as we solve our own problems, it
Mhm.
allows us to help solve others more effectively as you're sharing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's funny because I reflect back to several years ago, and I think just that when I got into commercial and the retail and restaurants, I was not disciplined. And it doesn't take very long for you to realize that like, "Oh, okay, this needs to change," because that has a very, very harsh learning curve, but it's very effective. And I shudder at times when I reflect back to the 11 years ago of that, but at the same time, I view discipline now in a very different light, and I see it as your key to freedom.
I agree. And I think, you bring a really interesting point up, Heather. I think we all evolve in business and we get better at things. In fact, we should always be learning and trying to get better at things. But I will bring up a very interesting perspective now in business. You've got a lot of younger workers coming into the workplace that don't have the same perspectives. And they're also working with people who've been in the workplace a lot longer. And so I think that there's an opportunity to grow from each other or to repel each other. And so it's really in terms of achieving more productivity and peacefully in the workplace, you have to figure that out and appreciate where your differences and approach are coming from. So, but I think it's just a really interesting time and who we have in our offices.
Oh, definitely. And that's a fascinating point that you bring up too about the different ages, because so much of commercial real estate, I'm the young one, right? At 50, just about. But there are starting to be some of the younger guys that are filtering in, and I think fresh out of college, right? So 22. But it will be interesting to see how that evolves. And again, it's interesting because real estate is so siloed in
Mhm.
the sense of you see everyone in your asset class, and a lot of it's over the phone, and we tour, but it's nothing like residential where you're out touring all the time or you have others touring for you and different things. So I am fascinated to see how that will work. And I think we always are better through collaboration, and there's always something to learn from others. And how do you take the best from everyone and put that onto the winning team per se, right?
Absolutely. And also in the context of how does that younger real estate agent see the customer differently than maybe somebody who's more seasoned would see them? And so is that an opportunity or is it a blind spot?
Hmm.
I always look
Well,
for
and also, yeah, I think with social media too, they definitely have an edge up. I joke, I know enough to be dangerous, and thank God for my assistant and things of that nature. But it's a whole nother world. And I think too, whatever arena you're in, you can really take a multi-level approach. And there's so many different ways because you're going to reach different people, different age groups, different habits and lifestyles through some of the different forms of communication and connection.
Yeah, and I think that the social media that's available now creates a more emotional connection, no matter what your age is. So I think that that kind of perspective that the younger uh, workers can bring it could be a real asset.
Definitely. I agree. How do you see this comes into conversations all of the time? How do you see AI shifting things?
AI is it really is a force multiplier. I really see it that way. You have if you're and you know I'm working with a lot of board groups right now, and everybody's talking about AI, and you have to use it and understand it and play with it in order for you not to be afraid of it. I think we all have a little bit of fear of it. So using it, whether it is to cut down on redundant tasks or things that could be quickly done, or that be repetitive, is a great way to start with it. But there's so much creative that can be used, so many creative steps that can be applied using AI. And I'm just scratching the surface with it now, but I think that the more we look at opportunities to use it to give ourselves time back is
Mhm. Definitely. And you hear it all the time, but time is all that we have. And I think that's been a big motivation for people in real estate too. Of you have the stocks and bonds, you've got the real estate, but then too, it's really how do you buy back to your time? How are you more efficient and things of that nature? So it's creating a lifestyle in a way that you do create more time through yourself. And I agree completely. I think AI is great for some of those very simple, mundane things, and um, kind of wrapping and creating a foundation or structure for some of the different aspects too.
definitely. I mean, the only thing I would say is that whenever you're using it for generating ideas or creative, that you always have to put your own spin on it too and put your own
Mhm.
print on it. Otherwise, it kind of loses your voice and personality.
Oh, definitely. And I think authenticity that you bring up, that's huge, right? That's really, I think, a big social currency right now. Whereas I think several years ago, it was more so images and, having this and that. Not that it's still not there, but I think there's a larger gap where people are looking for the authentic message and someone that can connect with them and understand what they're experiencing and help them to that next phase.
Mhm. Yeah, and I mean, real estate, certainly you need a high level of trust, but in any business relationship, you need to
Mhm.
be able to trust the person you're working with. And if you don't have that authenticity in whatever your messaging you're using, you will kind of diminish that amount of trust.
Definitely, and rapidly. Yeah. So what do you see occurring really in the next, let's just say 3, 5 years, in the sense of business, of entrepreneurship, of companies restructuring? How do you see things shifting and evolving?
Well, I think it's going to be more of the same because of all the shift. AI is going to eliminate some jobs, but add others. And so jobs will change. There's also this massive shift of or influx of the Gen Z people in the workplace. I think in 2025, they're saying it's over a quarter of the workforce. So as there's more and more young people, there are going to be more shifts and more change in the workplace. So good for me because that's the kind of work that we help companies navigate, but it could be a bumpy ride. And I think people have to be very resilient and they have to be able to look at things to embrace change instead of being weary and fearful of it. So that's one thing. I also think things are going to accelerate and change more rapidly because of AI. It's affecting, every corner of our lives. And, I also think though that people are very discerning. Customers are very discerning, whatever industry they're in, and they're looking for that connection. They don't want to be handled by bots. They do want that personalized experience. So, I think that it's going to be really interesting and quick developments over the next 3 to 5 years, as you say. And I don't know. I mean, it could be massive shifts in within 5 years, really.
Mhm. Oh, definitely. Yeah, it's I can't help at times to think about some of those futuristic movies, right? I'm like, okay, which parts of that will be coming true and hopefully some of the others really don't, right? But it is kind of interesting to think of future forward and just in either of our lifetimes of all of the different changes that have already occurred. And at some point we'll be in those 80s, 90s and we'll be like, I remember when. But what would you say is the driving force in what you do? I know you solve complicated issues for people you're really helping them, these different companies from one stage to another. What's another part of that that just fuels you, that speaks to your heart?
Because I work with senior leaders, I feel their desire to succeed. They want the right thing for their people and their companies, and sometimes they don't have all the answers. So when they, can reach out and get a solution that we can provide, it's very gratifying, quite honestly. I really do appreciate that kind of impact that we can bring.
Which is huge because you're not just affecting, a few people. It is on a much larger scale. So it is neat to see how an idea or just a different way of approaching something can have such a profound impact.
Definitely, yeah.
So careers are busy, they're stressful. How do you unwind? What are a couple of your tips on unwinding and kind of finding that space of relaxation and rejuvenation?
I'll give you two opposites. I start every morning with a workout. That's my sanity. I roll out of bed and I go work out for an hour, and nobody should bother me then. And so that's just how I ground myself and get myself started. And I guess the other three things. I always laugh and love being with my husband and just kind of seeing the fun in life. And then if I just really need to disconnect, this is the funny one. I just love to go to a store, a Marshalls or a TJ Maxx, and just look at things and, just kind of wander around,
Mhm.
kind of disconnect.
Right. It's kind of like a kaleidoscope of artistry, right? I'm the same way. I love color, and that's where for me, obviously, it's the marathon training, running, but time in nature too, for me, is just that big, like, you can just let it all go and it feels good. So, um, that's the physical exertion, I think, is a big one for a lot of us.
Yeah.
So, what would you say is one other tip for people just to keep in mind in the marketplace with all these different changes happening and the fast pace? Something else that they should keep on the near horizon.
Um, I I guess I would say keep an eye on customer trends, because no matter whether you're dealing with B2B or B2C, I would really say, pay attention to that, because there is they're the ones that drive the market. And I think more so now than before, because there's a very quick shift that they make a decision, and you have to be agile enough to adjust to it. Otherwise, it could be a long corrective cycle.
That makes perfect sense. So, my final question, this is always the hard hitter, Denise, is what does living fully mean to you?
Living fully, I think well, the things I shared with you about that I do every day, that's living fully. But my faith, my family, and really doing everything that you do so that you can make an impact for someone else. I really do think that we're all here for each other in some way. And so, as corny as that sounds, I do believe that.
Mm. You're in good company. I'm a firm believer in it, definitely. So, well, Denise, thank you so much for joining me today. How can people connect with you?
I guess the easiest way is you can find me on LinkedIn, or you can go to our website and just go to the contact us page and send me a note.
Perfect. Denise, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Heather.
You bet. Bye-bye.